The Great War of Separation continues. This is, of course, the second issue of the Great War of Separation. And this is a really good continuation of a foundational event of the Rippaverse. Now, in all of my Rippaverse reviews and all the content I make about the Rippaverse, I really emphasize that what the big draw for the Rippaverse is for me and for a lot of people is this idea of an expansive, deep universe, a sandbox, if you will. And the Great War of Separation is one of the cornerstones of that sandbox. And of course, when you've got Chuck Dixon and Jack Herbert on board, being the writer and the artist for this book, you're sure to get something truly great. And the Great War of Separation #1 introduced a whole lot to us, really set the scene for how the rest of the Great War of Separation was going to go. And this second issue really expands a lot. We have things with Avery and his family. Of course, if you read Isom #3, we find out, and this is spoilers, that Isom's powers come from his family, and we get some context into how that is figured out with Avery showing his first use of powers along with his mom in fighting off the Excepts that are hired or basically contracted by the United States government. This is absolutely fantastic art. We see, of course, Stallion, who was introduced in the last book, and we got a B-52 bomber there, so there's a lot of military lingo, there's a lot of military equipment. Of course, this is a war book, so of course you've got stuff like that, and it starts basically right after a little bit of a character introduction, because when Chuck Dixon when I had Chuck Dixon on, I interviewed him and saying, mentioning Avery's life is like mentioning the home front aspect of that. So you got a little bit of like that to, kind of be a nice transition into really this action-packed scene with the invasion of the capital of Texas in Austin. It does not go the way they exactly want it. And then it becomes really this war between who can get the best team of Excepts, with the Lone Star State having Brian Solari become an Except. And that's the really interesting thing. So that is, of course, seen here. And I'm going to mention right now, the art by Jack Herbert is fantastic. Some of the best art from the Rippaverse came from Jack Herbert in the Great War of Separation #1, and he brings his A game. It is a great follow-up to the bar that he set in Great War of Separation #1, and he has to stay on as a Rippaverse artist after the conclusion of this. He needs to keep getting work for the Rippaverse because he is just too good to let go as an artist. And of course, we get the origin of Brian Solari's powers. The first team he works, his platoon, and he basically gets powers alongside him. And this book is basically them training to fight against the threat of Excepts from the United States that is trying to subdue them. And you also have this mix of global politics in as well, because of course Texas is a big oil producer. You see this with the president. Of course, you've got Air Force One there. You got OPEC mentioned as well. So you got this geopolitical tension mixed in with the fact that this is a war between Texas and the rest of the United States. So it does kind of ground the story when you have stuff mentioned like OPEC and Texas's oil production, when you've also got stuff like Excepts going on as well. So Chuck Dixon really expertly mixes these political themes with the superhero themes, and of course with this being the context of a really epic war that of course has some pretty high stakes. Of course, this is the war for Texas independence, and you've got new characters introduced that are built up quite well. It's not only Newt, Rojo, and Absolute Zero, although the villains probably could have gotten a little bit more time. They show up towards the end and they do have some dramatic things. Absolute Zero, I think she has the best character design, if I can show off. Yeah, you see Absolute Zero right here, if I'm showing that off correctly. Probably has the best character design, but you've got Chip Salisbury, you've got Sadowski, and you've got the Excepts that Brian Solari is trained alongside with are all really interesting characters, although since this book is really fast-paced and it's part of a larger limited series. Of course, 3 and 4 is going to expand on this team now that we have the team established and we kind of know who they are. 3 and 4 is going to give us more context and going to explain why Brian Solari's modern day Alpha Core is only made up of Braxwell, Ingrid, and then of course Stefania a little bit later on, although if you've read Yaira number 2, her membership in the Alpha Core is definitely at question. But regardless, Brian Solari's story is very interesting. He's definitely the one who gets the most amount of characterization. The other ones are other characters or other accepts, both heroes and villains, a bit less focus on them, but there certainly is enough to draw you into them. Their powers are pretty easy to understand, and it's definitely something you can wrap your head around. And even though the pacing is really quick and it does end on a cliffhanger, it all feels very justified and earned. It leaves you wanting that 3rd and that 4th issue to really tie things up. And of course, Jack Herbert's art's absolutely fantastic, and Marco Lesko really gives this great coloring. It gives us this, pulp hard feeling that really draws you into the story. So Candace Hahn did the coloring for the 1st issue, and she did a fantastic job with that 1st issue, and Marco Lesko really lives up to that art job. And of course, Invisible Studios is the letterer for this book. They've been the letterer of basically all the Rippaverse books. They do a fantastic job with the placement and using bold letters and exaggerating the word bubbles at the exact right time. So everything looks absolutely fantastic. And this is a really good follow-up to what the Great War Separation number 1 established. And it really makes me excited to see how 3 and 4 are going to conclude things. And we're going to get some really good insight into one of the foundational events of the Rippaverse. But of course, there are things that happen before and after the Great War Separation that is really important as well, and just leaves you wanting more. So for every question you have answered, there's probably 3 more that are going to come up over the course of reading these books. But regardless, we do get some great lore, especially characterizing Brian Solari, and even with Isom and his mother, especially if you've read Isom number 3, you know a little bit more about Isom's powers, and you see more of that origin as well. So it's a really good insight, not only into the world of the Rippaverse, but some of those big characters as well. Most notably being, of course, Brian Solari and Isom, and the way Chuck handles and mixes it all together just has this one good plot that just feels so good to read. Does not feel too rushed, even though a lot happens, and it doesn't feel confusing, even though there is a lot going on, because he has some modern day things that grounds it. And of course, it's in the context of superhero comics, and the way he has the character designs and everything. It's very easy to understand. And of course, you got Jack Herbert just having this perfect understanding of what makes comic book art great. Brings that to every single page. All the layouts are very easy to wrap your head around and understand, and everything just looks fantastic. So from Chuck Dixon's script to the people who brought it to life, Jack Herbert, Mark Valescos, and the team at Invisible Art Studios, they do a fantastic job of just making this a really good comic book to read. And this is shaping up to probably be the best limited series that the Rippaverse is going to have. That's probably a bit of a preemptive thing to say, since we really haven't had any that concluded, and this is the first one. But even, Norfolk Glorious Death is probably on upcoming. Even though that's a big thing that's anticipated by the fans, I think just the magnitude of the event that this is, and the quality that this event, that this series is giving us, is something that I'm not sure if any other books in the Rippaverse are going to be able to live up to that, even though they'll probably be good in their own right. But enough rambling from me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review of the Great War Separation 2. This, of course, breaks my hiatus from uploading to YouTube. I am settled in to New England in New Hampshire, and I am going to get back on that content schedule. Of course, this week I'm going to be doing Braxcast Live, the regular Braxcast episodes starting on Saturday. Got a lot to talk about with the Rippaverse, so be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel or wherever else you're watching this, and hopefully you guys enjoy this one. But Joker is out. Thank you for stopping by the Velvet Room. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you can keep up with Velvet Room Publishing, and go to velvetroompublishing.com if you want to go even deeper into the Velvet Room.